Now, Mr. Frankenstein, are you really sure that we should be trying to transmute your brother back? Of course we should, my dear Igor. We need to bring him back to life, and then I can finally start my new project, making a cybernetic war machine out of a radish! Besides, what's the worst that could happen? Well, I didn't see that coming. Ah! Hello and welcome back to another midnight showing. As always, I am Victor Frankenstein, and I just got out of Victor Frankenstein. Okay, I'm not going to do the whole review with that voice, but that's basically what this movie is, in a nutshell. It's just unmitigated fun. My final verdict is it's probably worth renting on Redbox. It's not worth wasting your money inside of a theater for it. So, yeah, before we go into any spoilers, there's a lot of really good practical effects, and the performances are definitely worth mentioning. I just think this movie might have been received better if Iron Man hadn't come out, because James McAvoy is playing a very Tony Stark-esque Victor Frankenstein, and it's enjoyable. It's very engaging, debating the ethics of what they're doing versus the arguments of progress, throwing in a little bit of the religion aspect to it. It's just all around fun. So, yeah, my final verdict is probably wait until you can Redbox it to see if you actually like it. It isn't really worth seeing in theaters. For those who want to stay for spoilers, let's go into this. The plot of this basically is the retelling of Frankenstein, but from Igor's perspective. Yes, Daniel Radcliffe is the main character in this, not really James McAvoy. He is a main character, but this is definitely about Igor. Igor is a hunchback. He actually does start out a hunchback who can't walk very well. He's a clown in a circus, where Frankenstein finds him. After one of the performers has an accident, and Igor shows that he's very, very in tune. He's basically the camp doctor. He knows a lot about it and performs some surgery just on the fly without really anything but a pocket watch. Yeah. So he ends up leaving the circus with James McAvoy in a very, very exciting chase scene to, what else? Help Frankenstein build his monster. Yes. And it costs him an arm and a leg. There's a big transmuted circle. I'm joking. But for those who actually get that joke, it's going into the positives of this movie. The positive are definitely the two lead performers. James McAvoy and Daniel Radcliffe work off each other very well. And Daniel Radcliffe is a great Igor. When he actually starts out, he's very hunchbacked. It turns out the hump was just a cyst that needed to be drained. Victor Frankenstein then puts him in a back brace, and he's very, very standing up straight. He cuts his hair, he cleans himself up, and he's a very respectable man. Yes. It happens way too fast for anybody to actually believe that's what happened. But it was still enjoyable nonetheless. Their interactions with each other, they really do balance each other very, very well. McAvoy is the sarcastic asshole who has no time for those that are beneath him, while Radcliffe is slowly gaining his own self-assurance to the point where he even stands up to Frankenstein and tells him, no, you're acting out of line. They are made for each other, and you can definitely see the admiration in their pursuit of bringing people back to life. That's basically what the whole point is. It's not about making a monster or making their man. It's about making death temporary. A guy was murdered. Well, we can bring him back right over here so he can actually put his murderer on trial. It's a very novel idea that they're actually going over the ethics of what they're doing. We already know the who, the what, but the why is what's really interesting about this. They're constantly debating each other whether they should do it. People are trying to stop them, while at the same time they're finding ways of, well, talking their way around this. They literally are on the pursuit of something great, but they're not real. They're going over the consequences. It's a very, very intriguing story, the way that this is set up, especially when the inspectors get involved to try to stop Frankenstein because he's stealing animal body parts. He's not stealing human ones because, well, that would just be silly for a Frankenstein story. But it leads to a lot of gripping, tense action. There's times where the whole freaking building is going to go up in smoke and flames because of what's going on. They get electrocuted a lot. Frankenstein is an asshole to everybody, and Igor's usually trying to make apologies for him while trying to get his own relationship with the said circus performer girl who fell and broke her collarbone, I think it was. Yeah, I can go over the intricacies that are really, really good, but ultimately, the problem with this movie is, as I said, Iron Man already came out. We saw this type of genius asshole before, and it doesn't feel as new anymore. Not to say that James McAvoy is doing a bad job. No, he's doing a great job. He is such a lovable asshole, especially when he doesn't realize just how much of an ass he's being at a party where he shouldn't really be talking to women about ripping out animal organs. It's very intriguing. It just doesn't feel as fresh because we saw basically this in a frankly better production. It's still enjoyable, but ultimately what kills the movie is the third act, where they actually start building Frankenstein. And from then on out, it just turns into your standard typical monster movie. They gotta kill the monster before he goes on a rampage and kills everyone. The action's good, and thank God they actually just put a guy in a suit. Yeah, they actually just make up the guy into the Frankenstein stuff. They got someone who's like 7-8 feet tall, and they even have explanations for the bolts. They weren't actually bolts. They're more of like batteries to help. He connects the forks to them so that they can convert the energy from the lightning into the bioelectrical signals that our bodies actually use. So there was actually a point to it. But they were talking about how they built him better than everyone else. He's got 2 hearts, he's got 4 lungs, he's got extra muscles. I mean, they just cast basically this big-ass wrestler guy inside of it, and they just make up the hell out of him. And it's really, really good and interesting. 99% of this movie is practical. I do mean that. The only things that were really CGI were the lightning and the lightning absorbers. Everything else is actually on screen. Well, and the chimpanzee. They do a little experiment with a chimpanzee, and when they're not like right next to it, it's CGI. When it's running around and they end up having to kill the thing, it's CGI. But what were they really going to do with that? Frankenstein himself is actually... Frankenstein's monster, someone might correct me on that, is actually a guy in a very well-designed makeup suit and everything. But we've seen this stupid plotline before where they have to kill him. Even the way they have to kill him is ripped straight from The Mummy 3. Because they end up having to stab him in the heart. So Igor manages to get a spike right through him, only for them to realize, wait, he has 2 hearts! Which, if you take out one, he won't be able to pump the blood he would need. He would die within a minute. But then he ends up going after Frankenstein, who stabs the other heart and like impales him with a stick that's going basically through his whole body. You've seen this before. Frankenstein goes off into the wilderness to realize, hey, maybe I should have put a brain inside of my monster. Yeah, that's why Frankenstein went crazy. You didn't put a brain in him. Guess what? He had a brain. And ultimately, it kind of feels like a prequel to Mary Shelley's actual novel, because that's where they leave it off as he goes off in the wilderness to basically do the experiment again, but this time with the brain and the monster. It was stupid and cliche. The ending just felt out of place. For all the discussion about the conspiracies with the inspector that was after them, with the family that was using Frankenstein to try to make an immortal army to control Europe with, from the ethical decisions with Igor and his personal life with this lady, the ending just feels like, yeah, shove it out there. And it's what really does kill the movie is that ending. Granted, I love the fact that everything was practical. The machines, they actually did build giant room-sized machines and everything. Sparks are actually flying off when things are exploding around them. It's so rare because most of the time they would just use the CGI for that. But they actually did limit their use of CGI. And I can see why, from a production standpoint, why this would come out this time of the year. Everyone else would probably just assume that this movie should have come out sometime in September or January. No, there was actually a fair amount of thought put into this. It's just that ending needed to be reworked. And yeah, I know this one's a lot shorter than usual, but I don't really have anything else to say about Victor Frankenstein. It was enjoyable. It did have a lot of enjoyable moments. The action was very gripping. The interaction between Daniel Radcliffe and James McAvoy is hilariously awesome. But overall, it just didn't have enough substance. Or maybe it didn't pay off on the substance. It just felt like all the other plot lines just disappeared for the sake of having a monster fight at the end. Just saying. So, yeah, my final verdict is wait for Redbox or Netflix. It just isn't worth seeing in theaters. There wasn't anything that added anything to it. Hell, when I finally did go see this, which was admittedly a week after it came out, I was the only one in a theater of 300 seats. Yeah, I'm the only one there. I mean, hell, Krampus had a bigger turnout to this on its opening day than when I was sitting in there. And it's bombing at this point. Critics don't like it. Audiences are lukewarm at best. It could have been a better movie than it was. And I think that if a couple of rewrites had happened, it probably would have been. But I guess that'll never happen. So yeah, that's it for me. Did you enjoy the video? Have you seen Victor Frankenstein? Tell me what you thought about it in the comments below, and maybe we'll get some healthy discussion going. If you want to see more of my channel, I'll have some links to my videos right down here, as well as links to my channel right up here, as well as a playlist somewhere. What else is there? If you liked what you saw, try to check me out on Facebook and on Twitch. I will have links to those in the description below as well. And yeah, that's it. So I guess I'll see you all next time.